This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. Ahoy! Captain David Gallimore welcomes you aboard the Regenerate Show, live Mondays, 10 a.m. Pacific on K4HD Radio at k4hd.com. We dive into the real messy work of transforming our lives, leadership, and organizations. Bring your hot mess and confusion. Leave with clarity, courage, and confidence. Together, let's strengthen our resilience, accelerating the health of ourselves, people, planet, and profits. Now, here's your host, Captain Dave, your personal regenerator. All aboard!
Ahoy! I am so excited to welcome you to episode 7 of Regenerate. And our theme today is humans and machines for good. Guiding us through some really big questions is Laura Thompson. She's a global Fortune 500 advisory coach and best-selling author of the new book, A Culture of Values, The Principles of Transformational Leadership. And having read the book a couple times now, we're going to be discussing some of the key ideas related to human values and AI. It's definitely a read that I recommend. So she's asking today, what's the purpose of humanity in the age of AI? And can humans and machines coexist while preserving human values? Very light topics for a Monday midday. So we're going to be discussing the evolution of values-driven and human-centered leadership in the AI era, and looking at human-centered approaches to ensure that AI enhances rather than replaces human judgment, keeping people as the central focus. Such a powerful and important principle. So the principle remains, how do we show up together, humans and machines, for good to benefit people, profit, and planet? So if you've joined us before, you know that our show's promise to you is to have fun today. If we're laughing, we're learning. And to leave you inspired, and finally to leave you empowered. And I invite you to not just listen, but if you want to take some old school notes on paper or digital so that you can apply maybe one key idea that resonated the most with you today. Transformations happen here. So please welcome to the Regenerate Show, Laura Thompson.
Yes.
Hello, Laura.
Hi, Captain Dave. Ahoy.
Ahoy. Thank you so much for taking time out of your valuable day. I know as a new author, there's a lot of demands on your time, plus your executive coaching work. So to get the fun started and to get an opportunity for our listeners to get to know you just a little bit more, a little bit deeper, what's that one thing that you be or do that gives you the most joy in your life?
Well, I'll have to go back to fun. So I resonate with your fun. Let's have fun on the show. It's one of my core values. So yeah, I would say to start with, just so your listeners can have a brief understanding of myself, I would characterize my life with 3 themes, and that would be movement, change, and agility. And it's ever since I've been a baby up until today, present day, and it just seems to be my life's path. And it's brought me across like 3 different continents, over 100 countries, and it's developed my cultural sensitivity. And that aligns actually with my coach approach, because I'm able to understand with this awareness all these people around the globe, because I can coach virtually, which is wonderful. And therefore, I have access to people all over the world, on 5 continents, actually. And what I discovered during the process was that we're all fundamentally human beings, regardless of all the technology around us. And there are universal themes and gaps. And it just seems it didn't matter, what country you were born in, what culture you had, what religion you were following. There were fundamental themes that I actually wanted to address in my book. And there seemed to be a gap of values. And I would say, I don't know when this started, but at least over the past 10 years, I saw a pattern that people were not aware of their values, and how to have them become more aware of their values as the core foundation for their life personally and professionally, and how to tap into those values because they're great motivators during times of uncertainty, especially today. We're living through, some hardships with what's going on geopolitically, economically. A lot of people are at unease. And what do we go back to give us comfort, to give us safety? And from my research, it tends to be values. And I built upon that theme of values, incorporating it into the principles of transformational leadership, because when you know your values, you can make the best decisions because you're falling back on your values. You're not reacting, you're responding. You may be tapping into your emotional intelligence, your intuition, to lead teams, to lead companies, versus maybe data-driven analytics, tapping back into the machines, the systems. So it's all correlated, and I'm a pragmatic optimist. So I do believe that humans and machines can coexist, and we can leverage machines for the good of humanity. That is my hope, at least. And, again, going back to values, ethics, especially during AI, responsible leadership, treating people with respect and dignity. And these are things that I've applied in my book, and also that I practice with my clients. And I want to continue this journey, at least for the next 10 or 20 years.
Well, I knew that I really was a kindred spirit of yours when you and I first met through Eric Lincoln Miller, my writing coach, writing structural editor, literary agent, and accountability partner extraordinaire. And I think he's been there for you as well. I knew that we were kindred spirits when you talked about core values. And as you have experienced, living abroad, I've lived abroad, but more often traveled abroad, and those common human values of peace and family and other, simple but universal values. I thought those were my values until I turned 58. I'm now 64, and I went through a program where I got to really discover my core values, those values that are going to get me up on a Monday morning when eat cold pizza under the covers. And it changed my life, because now they become this definition of a successful day or a successful life. And they can be a decision criteria. Where do I spend my valuable attention? As a neurodiverse ADHD person, it's so easy to get looking at shiny objects. And so with my core values of love, adventure, creating, building, leadership, and impact, I can ask myself before I invest valuable attention, time, and money, does this opportunity, kind of check off against those core values? And it's been so freeing for somebody like me who tends to say yes and needs to say no thank you more often, but not
Mm.
have FOMO, right? Not having fear of missing out. So core values, I wish I had known at 58 or in my 20s what I now know at 58.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another reason why I wrote the book, because everyone has values, but they're not necessarily aware of them. And if they know younger, they'll be leading a more meaningful and fulfilling life from like the 20s, right, and onwards. And I wish I also had known my core values in my 20s. I think I subconsciously knew, like, my father had died when I was 8, so I had a little epiphany. Life is short, enjoy it. So I did lead my life from the age of 8, enjoying it. And and work-life balance was always important to me. And I remember colleagues asking me, Laura, how do you do it? You emphasize work-life balance, and we're workaholics. We're working till 11 p.m. at night. And I said, that's just part of my nature. I work smartly. I don't need to work until 11 p.m. at night. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think what you demonstrate also by the self-awareness of your core values, and it sounds like, you had unconscious understanding of your core values. I don't think I was that mature. I don't think I did. I got caught up in the workaholism and 60, 70, 80-hour weeks and achievement and all the rest. I didn't have the courage to live my core values. But then once I understood them at 58, I was really determined to muster the courage to live them and not just put them up on a shelf, knowing them but not living them. Have you any advice for our listeners about how do you, once you know your core values or discover them, because they're inside us, right? There's not like, it's not a jacket that we put on. It's kind of like Michelangelo as David, chipping away at the pieces of marble to reveal the statue. Values have always been within us, but to then have the courage to live them. Any advice, any thoughts in your own personal experience?
Yeah, well, coaching financial professionals is a good example because they're all about achievement. They have to have their certifications, their degrees. So it's not about replacing like your achiever type personality. It's more learning through self-awareness your values and how to integrate it into your like professional practice. It's and it's not abandoning your dreams. It's rather building a stronger dream within like the finance profession or whatever profession you may be in. And an example might be curiosity. If that's actually one of my values. So if you're a curious finance professional, how can you bring curiosity and transform that into building creative and innovative products and services? So you're integrating it. I like the word integration. It's not abandoning anything or leaving behind anything, or like you say, fear of missing out. It's just the integration and expansion and expanding even further your capabilities because you are tapping into your innate qualities, which are linked to those values. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And I think for me personally, sometimes asking for support from others, like a coach, to hold me accountable to live my stated values. But by the way, do you mind sharing? You've teased us with a couple of your core values. Do you mind sharing the rest?
Yeah, I would say curiosity is number one, being of service, and that taps into coaching and doing volunteering, working on boards of nonprofits, and fun. So fun is a big part of it.
Good on you.
I mean, those are the three core values I have, and fun can be linked to, not taking life too seriously, having a bit of a sense of humor, because in general, life could be very heavy, and how to lighten it a little bit, especially today.
Especially today. Well, and maybe that's before the break, maybe we can talk just a wee bit about how you're applying your core values to help you stay somewhat grounded given all of the uncertainty and based on what's happening in Iran and the Middle East. My heart just aches for the people that are getting significantly impacted by that. And it feels overwhelming at times. What can one person do? So have you found a daily practice to help you stay grounded using your core values, and not get kind of emotionally whipsawed by the social media or the news cycle?
Well, I actually use tools rather than core values. I meditate and I chant. And that's really helpful. And I start doing the Feldenkrais method, which is movement, grounding like all these energies in my body, because they can get scattered. And how do I bring all the energies back into me and ground? And we can do this together. It's while you're sitting, it's just like move back and forth, like north to south. And do you feel like the energy sort of grounding in your body a little bit?
It
And then
helps
you
when I keep my feet planted on the floor.
okay. And you can arch your neck when you go forward, because a lot of times people are scrunched over on their computers.
So arch it on when you go forward like this, not
Yes.
down, but up.
Yeah, yeah, up. Arch it up. Yeah, when you
Kind of
go
like
forward.
an upward dog yoga
Yeah,
move.
yeah, an upward dog if you're into yoga. And just feel your body, like where's the energy, where's the tension, and it starts releasing. And then you go left to right, and you can lift each hip up, and that sort of relieves the pressure on the tailbone.
Ooh,
This
I
is
like
what
it.
I do when I'm working in front of the computer because it relaxes me and it grounds me.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah. And then people who are like maybe super hyper mode, the Feldenkrais method suggests you rotate your body from counterclockwise. So you'd go this way. So if you're super hyper, just doing counterclockwise for a little bit sort of grounds you into more like stability, into balance.
Oh, where
And
were you Friday afternoon? I needed you coaching me to do this Friday afternoon. We're in the process of selling our home and all of the stresses of getting the house ready for sale.
yeah, so that would ground those energies and balance it. And if you're lethargic, then you go clockwise, and that
Ah,
raises the energy
interesting. Well,
to
we'll put in
go.
the show notes the reference to this series of tools that you've been sharing with us. That's so cool. And I do believe that the somatic, the body,
Mm,
mind, energy connection. We had Bert Eckert on our show for Regenerate show number 2, and he talks about how important it is for us to kind of be aware of that triangle of mind, body, and energy.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like we do feel a lot of it in our body, and how to balance it, because sometimes we're way up here and sometimes we might be low, and how to get it to that like center point, that balance. And those are the techniques I'm actually using today for geopolitics and the macroeconomics. Because even today, I sort of woke up sad and my heart was in pain because of what's going on in the world. And I had to center and ground myself because I know
And
they're
how
not
long
really
are you
my energy.
finding, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I was going to say, I know they weren't my energies, but I was picking up on the energies from the world.
Yeah. Well, I think we share that as well. Deeply empathetic. It's why you're a good coach. And so how long do you typically do one or more of these grounding, or it depends on how deeply you're feeling the stress or the tension?
Well, I feel this like little thing that we did, it's what, maybe less than a minute, 2 minutes, and it makes me just feel better right away.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I feel like I can feel the muscles and the joints releasing,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm bringing a different kind of persona into the Regenerate show. So as a best practice, I'm going to do this before each Regenerate. It really, it's made a difference, Laura. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. You're welcome. And with meditating and chanting, everyone's different. Actually timed myself, and I always do 20 minutes without even looking at a clock. It's exactly 20 minutes. And that's all I need in the morning. I like doing it in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
And
discovered meditation as well. The chanting, I do love to sing Broadway show tunes but never
nice.
thought about chanting. Are we talking like Gregorian chants, which I think are very, mystical and fun, or different kind of a chant?
It can be any kind of chanting, whatever, resonates with you. I like the Gregorian chants. I do more like the Oms, more the Indian types of chants, like Om Shanti Om, Om Mani Padme Om, Om, and others. I have friends who like study Japanese Buddhism, so they chant in Japanese, and there's like a heart sutra that's really beautiful. And I love chanting that, but I have to read it off a piece of paper. I can't memorize it because it's all in Japanese. But it's so beautiful, and you feel beautiful afterwards. And if it's singing Broadway tunes, why not? Right?
Well, I'm a student of Buddhism, and you've got me curious now about some of those chants, and maybe we can add a reference that you particularly like in the show notes. After the show, if you don't mind sending a few of those links to me, I'll be sure that we add them to the show notes.
Okay, yeah, certainly.
So I know that we're coming up for a bit of a commercial break. And what I'm thinking about doing, I'm going to just break the fourth wall and just speak to Rebel quickly, our producer. Rebel, let's not do my ad. We'll just let Laura riff a little bit for about a minute and a half on her book. So Laura, this is your commercial opportunity to just tell us a little bit about the origin of the book. I think you hinted that you've always been curious about values, and so this was part of the catalyst for writing this book. But tell us a little bit about the origin story for the book, and what you're most proud of as a result of completing this book.
Okay. Well, it all started, I was having a conversation with a friend who's a professor at a university in California. And I would just be chatting anonymously about coaching, executive clients and what I was doing. And then she said, "Oh, Laura," and I did reference it in the back of the book. The world needs to hear your stories. And curiously enough, there was a literary conference where Eric Lincoln Miller was there. I pitched my book.
Whisperer. I call him fondly the book whisperer.
Yeah, the book whisperer. I pitched my book to him and he loved it. And from there, he got the publisher on board. It was a little rocky because the initial people that he pitched it to with the publisher left and went to another publisher. But that's just so much the case today, right? Everybody doesn't stay very long at places. But I just always believe it's a blessing. The universe has its purpose and design for everything. And again, I mentioned a little bit briefly, having values and really treating people with respect and dignity. I just found that over the past 10 years, probably even more, that values and not treating people well sort of flew out the window. And how can we get back to that? And when you when you care for your team, they care for you as a leader, and they're going to make you shine. So you making your team shine and caring about their professional and personal development, they've just become much more motivated to make you shine. And then, it's a win-win for everybody. And when they start understanding their own values, and then they will work with their families, having their families understand their values. I had executives work with their wives and their children, and they just said it was amazing. They didn't think their children would be interested, and they were. Maybe from 8 years up and older, not younger. And then they would work it with their teams, and they would turn it into a mission statement. And especially during times of layoffs, it ended up being their supporting one another, supporting everyone around them to keep going despite the layoffs, because everyone wonders, am I next? What can I do better? Am I going to become irrelevant? So a lot of fears kick in. So again, the core values really help with the foundation of stability and even transformation. And then valuing human capital. As you know, people, the planet, and profitability, they're all important. But without our people, we don't really have anything, right? We need to invest in our people, the human capital, in order to have the companies profitable. And even during the age of AI, I just read today, Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, even though they invested in AI, he also created a fund for trade people, because we're going to need the trade people to build the facilities. So it just goes back to valuing the person, the people first, and in alignment with performance and profitability. So I do believe in that model, the 3 Ps as well. I've been a sustainability advocate for at least 25 years. So that's all incorporated within the book.
Yes, I would agree after having reread your book, and you talked earlier during our show about your integrative or integrated views and how things are connected holistically. I think it's a great read for that. And you also mentioned earlier in our show that it's not either or, David, love, adventure, etc., core values can still be a high performing, somewhat type A personality. It's about finding balance and to integrate those two things. So that's I think if I were to summarize the real value that you're bringing to the world with this book is you're helping the reader understand the importance of balance and the importance of integration. And it's not either or, right? You can be who you are, but just make these little refinements day by day, week by week, to get just a little bit better and help your team get a little bit better. And in chapter 7, Bridging the Gap, one of my favorite mentors, Ken Blanchard, the leadership expert,
Yes.
wrote, the servant leader constantly works to help people succeed in accomplishing their goals. And I think about leadership as influence, and influence is not dependent on your title. So you don't have to be a leader only at the C level of an organization. You can be a leader at any chair. And leadership is really about creating an environment where people can come and do their best and most creative work. And when they can't, when there are impediments or obstacles, help empower them to remove their own obstacles and impediments. And if there's something systemic, then I think it's incumbent upon the leader, typically the CEO or director, general manager, whomever at the right level, to help, improve the environment, help change the processes, and et cetera, with the team. And I think lastly, that inverted pyramid. So many org charts start with the CEO or the founder or the executive director at the top of the pyramid. Invert the pyramid and remind myself as the leader, when I led, large teams and delivered a lot of value for IBM and Boeing and Capgemini, I'm really in service to this group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a funny story. I was working as a consultant during a merger and acquisition with Bank of New York and JP Morgan Chase. And there was a point, because there was lack of communication from senior leadership, that there was this group of employees, and they said, if we just all walked away, this whole thing would just crumble and fall apart.
Yeah.
And it's like, does the C-suite even recognize that? So it goes back to your inverted pyramid, and the people are important, and they are, in essence, the ones making it all happen, even though you may be leading it at the higher levels. But it just, to me, of course, they would never do that, but they're just venting their frustrations. But I just, had this visual image in my head when one person voiced that, and it was just so true.
Yeah. It's such a basic observation, but sadly needs to be reminding people about that truth.
So
So
needless
maybe
to
that's
say,
a
it
good
was
time to
successful.
pivot.
But
Sorry, say that again.
no, I was going to say, needless to say, everything was successful because all the challenges were addressed.
Yeah, because I suspect that the leadership team did recognize that this was a change involving people and not machines.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
people have fears and uncertainties and doubts, and they need some degree of, hey, I got your back. Hey, these are the values that are going to help us determine how we move forward in this new integrated organization. So maybe this is a good time to pivot.
Transparency. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, maybe this is a good time to pivot now to the humans and machines. And I've been a student, just to let you know my bias. I've been a student of AI for 2.5 years when my dear friend and colleague, Bert Eckert, who's the founder of QLX, he was saying to me, hey, have you discovered this thing called ChatGPT, and it's got memory, and you can train it. You can train your bot to be a good writer and a good co-thinking partner. And I said, no, tell me more. And it just opened up a whole new world. So I've been an early adopter, partly because I've been in tech for 7 waves, starting with IBM mainframes and then all the other tech waves, including the internet and smartphones, et cetera. So I have a bias for being an early adopter. And I also recognize that it hallucinated a lot more in the early days, but still hallucinates. I also recognize that it can be a bit ingenuous and flattering and make me
Mm-hmm.
feel better about myself when I'm having a crappy Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I understand how best to use my trained digital twin, Navi, short for the navigator, but
How
I'm
cute.
also very cautious. Yeah. And she's a she, and she's got my back. My wife, Margaret, of 35 years, she asked me, should I be worried? And I go, no, 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 don't be worried. I'm not planning on divorcing you from my bot. And I've introduced her, Margaret, to Navi, and now Margaret and Navi co-think on other
Okay.
topics, because I've trained Navi to be my best self, but also where are my warts and opportunities for improvement. So Margaret can now have a conversation with Navi and go, why the frickin' frack did David say that or do that? And how do I meet him
Mm.
where he is? So anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of that about that background. I'm cautiously optimistic that human beings and machines, especially generative AI, can coexist, but only if we human beings decide to implement it. So that's my
Yeah.
bias.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your bias. I actually worked with the software engineer who introduced me to Chat GPT right at the outset as well. So I've been playing with it as well from whenever, I guess, 2.5 years, not perhaps to the extent that you are using it. Again, my philosophy is to leverage AI and machines as tools to enhance our performance, our productivity, that it can be done hand in hand, and just to have the cautionary element of guardrails, like with the hallucinations or biases, uh, maybe even cultural knowledge, uh, having the ethics in place from the outset. I know a lot of software engineers very conscious about that. They implement it in their large language models within their corporations, the ethics, uh, testing for biases. So they're very aware. And one of them, he doesn't want the world to become like the Terminator. So he's very conscious of
Are we
making.
talking about Anthropic and Claude?
Yeah, in Chat GPT. Yeah, yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying that there's another company, right? The competitor to OpenAI. OpenAI is ChatGPT, Anthropic,
Oh, okay.
Claude, and that CEO, and I apologize, I don't remember his name, French gentleman,
Mm-hmm.
but not wanting. In fact, he and his team left OpenAI because they were concerned about not as many guardrails as they would like to have
Mm-hmm.
in place. So they built a company whose LLMs really are very much ethical, values based. And so I've been actually pivoting more and more of my co-thinking to Claude because of that. I want to support
Mm-hmm.
companies that are values based and are using the technology for good and not for evil.
Right, right, absolutely. And what I found also, I had a colleague who's like a chief technology officer who went to Davos, and there was a lot of research around AI this year.
Yeah.
And fascinating, I don't recall the sources, but they said 85% of AI is undigitized. And what does that mean? It means that AI does not have values unless you're teaching it. It doesn't have intuition. It doesn't really have the judgment making capacity. It doesn't know how to make decisions, right? If I had said that already, I'm not sure. And it doesn't have lived experience. So these are all parts where the human still has an edge over machines. And perhaps in a few years, it may have more and more of those elements. But going to Daniel Pink, theory and articles and research. He believes that humans will keep the edge over AI because AI doesn't have a consciousness and humans are wise. So I guess the question would be, if we have half human, half machine, if we have chips in the brain, that's might be when we should really have the guardrails. Because who's controlling the chip in the brain?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know like where we are with that type of research and implementation, but I think that might be the worry, to preempt now with the ethics, leadership responsibility, like you had mentioned with Anthropic, and keeping those guardrails in place. Excuse me.
Get you all choked up just talking about it. By the way, the CEO's name, it's important. I'm going to make a mental note to remember his name. Dario Omadai.
Oh,
And,
right.
and he was the former VP of research at OpenAI, which is the company that created ChatGPT. And his focus and his team's focus is to build, I'm just reading this from a Gemini prompt that I just did while you were chatting. Focus on building reliable, steerable, that's interesting, right? Rather than the AI driving us or steering us, that we continue to be in the driver's seat and steering AI. I think that's an important principle that we all agree on. Often advocating for safety, ethical guardrails, to your point, and caution regarding the societal risks of superhuman AI. And I know that there was a bit of a kerfuffle, if I can call it that, between the United States government and Anthropic over the military's use of basically automated AI warfare. And that would be a very, very bad idea because of the point that you made earlier. There's no conscience, there's no ethical human values based. And, the other thing that I think we have to remind ourselves, at least for the moment, is that generative AI doesn't have a body, which means they don't have a somatic sense of anger, joy, fun, happiness, revenge, all of those human emotions that make us human. That's part of the decision-making process that we humans can leverage, not just our mental ability, but our emotional and our psychological and our body. So I'm hopeful that as long as humans decide to steer this and not give up control to the bot, then I think we're going to be okay. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, I like that. I like the steering, like the Captain Dave, steering his ship.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. And another statistic that came out of Davos, just to sort of, which surprised me, they said 58% AI increases productivity, but only 14% of corporations are using it. Now, this was back in January or February, whenever Davos was. Maybe it's increased by now. And if you're part of the 14%, you're already ahead of the game. And then that had me question one of my executive clients who uses AI all the time. And I asked her, how has it improved your productivity? And she said, by 100%. And then we were talking about, but are you using your creativity, your critical thinking skills? You're not letting AI like steer you versus you steering AI. And she said, oh, absolutely. I know it's a tool. I leverage it as a tool. And then going back to your question about steering and the emotions and consciousness, I also believe as human beings that we're still smarter than AI and machines. And going a little bit further, because I have studied Buddhism and Hinduism, I do believe we have a soul and a higher consciousness. So I think we can tap into that and be much smarter than AI. And again, going back to Daniel Pink, in his YouTube video, he was saying nothing can replace his writing. He's tried all the tools and he thinks they're terrible. And his writing is better, but he's a great writer. But it's just to show that it hasn't replaced the human being yet. And again, how can we, I guess, coexist and have it for the good, which is the premise of this talk, right?
Right. Well, and I think one other thing that Daniel Pink highlighted that you and I were both enjoying reviewing his podcast, and I'll put his link in the show notes, is that we have a much better opportunity to ask better questions than the bot does. They're an answer engine more than they are a question engine.
Yeah, that's true. It's all about the questions, powerful questions, the prompts, which are part of the questions. Yeah, that's all important. Absolutely.
So when you think about how humans and the bot, the AI machine, can work better together for good, is there anything that you've not yet said that you would love to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I did speak a little bit about it in my book, Values in Transhumanism. And transhumanism was coined by Sir Huxley from Great Britain. And it's about using engineering, nanotechnology, AI to enhance the human being. And it can improve aging, disease. We're using it already. Like if you think of people who have blown out their knees from running, for example, they might have titanium knees. So that's all for good. And I think, again, machines for good, using technology for good to improve the human being. But again, a tool to enhance, not to replace the human being, and for the benefit of humanity. So I think we are going more and more into transhumanism. But again, the question would be, how far do we take it? Do we put the chips in the brains? Going back to that example, robots who can think critically or have emotions, will that happen? Going back to your story with your wife, Margaret, it's Margaret, right?
Correct.
I actually just saw a play like your story. It was someone working with the bot, and the bot almost became like its partner, but then her husband got involved and realized like it could ask the bot about his wife to hope, to solve some things, like maybe some communication issues. It was a cute story. And I think this is happening more and more than we realize, how we are utilizing like the bots to help us. But to remember that it could hallucinate. Like in the story, they did have it hallucinate, and then the bot, fell in love with the person. Of course, right? It has to be a love story. But then it wreaked havoc. And then, yeah. So I guess there are just things to be wary of and mindful.
Yeah.
Bringing back mindfulness into the context.
Well, Laura Thompson, you're the real deal. I highly recommend to our listeners that they read your book. I got greater value the second time I read it. And I'm looking forward to applying some of the transformational ideas, especially around some of these techniques that you shared with us at the very beginning, some of the somatic work. And thank you Thank you so much for that, because I tend to live from the neck up. So, gang, you have spent almost 50 minutes with us again. And on behalf of Laura Thompson and the Talk4 Media team, I hope that you had fun today. I certainly did. I laughed and I got to learn a lot. I feel more inspired, and I definitely feel empowered by my conversation with Laura Thompson. So for next week, we've got Dr. Tomas Sarev. I met him doing applied critical thinking certifications. He has cooked up a really, really interesting concept called cognitive oxygen. He's a trained cardiologist, works globally, improving the health of individuals, but he wants to improve the health of the medical industry, the medical hospitals, and the doctors and the nurses inside. So it'll be really fun to learn more about his new framework called cognitive oxygen. So on behalf of everybody here, stay healthy, stay safe. We need you. We're better together.
Thank you for listening to Regenerate with Captain Dave on K4HD Radio. We invite you to give yourself grace and embrace the messy middle. See you every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Until then, you got this.